For the record, my name is Susan Kaiser, Kaiser. I'm a National Board Certified teacher. I'm also a native Nevadan, but I've not always lived in the Silver State. For 13 years, we called Maryland home, and it was where my children began their public school education. The well-funded neighborhood school was staffed with certified educators who also had the help of an aide. Opportunities for one-on-one instruction for students were frequent and allowed teachers to assess when a child needed strategic interventions. I know this because when my daughter began to fall behind in math, her third grade teacher noticed immediately and arranged for a math specialist to meet with her until she got caught up with her classmates. After returning to Reno when Rachel started sixth grade, the fall reading tests at Jessie Beck placed Rachel as one of the top 3 readers in the sixth grade. The other 2 top readers were also transplants from Maryland. This wasn't a fluke, it was the funding. Rachel's little brother, Nathan, only attended kindergarten in Maryland public schools, and when he began to struggle decoding words in his second grade class in Reno, there were no specialists. We signed him up for book club, but that didn't help. We enrolled him in a special program for developing readers at UNR, took him there weekly. We hired private tutors that worked with him during the school year and over the summer. Finally, by 4th grade, he was caught up, and today he's a proud UNR graduate. But current public funding for schools in Nevada doesn't allow for staffing levels of trained specialists. If a child is struggling, the parents need to find and pay for these additional services. My question is, what about families who can't provide these extra resources for their kids when they're struggling? This is a problem that can be addressed with adequate, consistent, and long-term funding to public schools. Every child should be able to succeed at school. It all comes down to the funding. Funding to hire and retain qualified teachers, funding to reduce the number of students assigned to a teacher so that one-on-one instruction is possible. We are at a crossroads, and I strongly urge you to pass the plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
For the record, my name is Phil Kaiser, Kaiser. I taught high school social studies for 20 years in Washoe County School District and typically had a class roster of 160 to 180 students, including 10 to 15% who were special needs students, IEPs, 504s, things like that. In addition, on any given day, there were a number of students who were absent, whether it was for a medical appointment or for a sports program or something else. And I just want to highlight that because absenteeism has been such a rampant issue over the last several years as far as student achievement goes. If the students aren't there, the teachers can't teach them. Despite increased funding in the last legislative session, Nevada is still $4,000 per pupil below the national average. There are still 1,000 vacant teaching positions across the state. Attracting teachers to Nevada to teach or making teaching an attractive occupation for Nevadans requires increased funding. In addition, right now, federal funding is at risk. We know the Department of Education is being reorganized, programs are being cut, in particular Title I schools that have at-needs populations and students who are with special needs. We can't know for certain what's going to happen to that federal funding, how that's going to play out, so we have to focus on what we can control. The Commission on School Funding developed a plan to reach the national average in 10 years. It identified revenue sources, typically sales and property taxes. Whether you focus on those sources of funds or others, Nevada's students depend on you to give them the opportunity for success. Without continued support, our students will struggle. Please pass the plan. Help our students succeed. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
Good evening. Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association. During the first months of the 23 legislative session, there was a great deal of attention on Nevada's record increase to school funding. Revenues were way up coming out of COVID, and the new school funding plan had a mechanism to capture a proportional share. However, shortly after, the theme of the session pivoted to school district accountability, which included an all-day Saturday hearing where legislators called school districts to the table to demand accountability and ensure that additional dollars led to improved student achievement. There seemed to be a feeling that the work of the funding was done and the real problem was shortcomings at the school districts. The truth is that while there were inefficiencies at the school district level, the overriding issue in public education remains chronic underfunding. Most of the new monies invested in education last session were eaten up by increasing costs. As the subcommittee will hear this evening from Guy Hobbs, Nevada remains more than $4,000 behind the national average and even further behind optimal per pupil funding. When the legislature created the Funding Commission, they charged it with making recommendations to raise the revenue necessary for Nevada's to reach optimal funding, and they've done just that, recommending the state raise revenue by expanding the base of sales tax and closing property tax loopholes. But we haven't heard a word about those proposals since the report was delivered last legislative session. The recommendations by the commission were shelved for 2 years, and now with no new revenue and tougher economic times, Governor Lombardo has proposed just $2, a $2 increase to the base per pupil funding for next year. Districts across the state have begun to deliberate budget cuts, $9.6 million in Washoe, $3.5 in Carson for deficits. They are talking teacher positions, reading centers, and possible school closures. $2 doesn't cover increasing costs or the 3.25% PERS increase. That's why 2 years ago, NSCA asked what accountability in public education means. Does it mean holding school districts accountable? Absolutely. But it also means holding state leaders accountable for the plan that they commissioned. Pass the plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
My name is Brent Busboom. That's B-R-E-N-T. Busboom is B-U-S-B-O-O-M. I'm a teacher with over 25 years of experience, most of those at Reno High School. During that time, I've been named Teacher of the Year. I've helped students win national and international awards. I basically spent a career believing that if I gave enough, stayed long enough, cared hard enough, the system would meet me halfway. But the reality is, it hasn't. When I started teaching at Reno High, we had 1,600 students and 17 English teachers. Today, we have 1,800 students and 11 teachers trying to do the work of 17. That's not just a statistic, it's a signal that something we built, something we believed in, is being allowed to fall apart. Here's another example. My daughter is graduating from the University of Nevada this May. She's graduating after only 3 years. To do that, she took 18 credits a semester, worked 35 hours a week, and never received anything lower than an A. She is driven, she is smart, and she is committed, and she wants to be a school psychologist in Nevada. But recently, I told her this: you should probably leave the state. She teared up and said, "But I don't want to go." And I said, "I don't want you to go either." And that moment broke something in me, not just as a teacher, but as a father. But that's what the governor's plan of $2 per student will buy you. It'll buy you disbelief, heartbreak, and a quiet conversation where a public school veteran tells his own daughter to go find a future somewhere else. It doesn't have to be this way. The Commission on School Funding, this legislature's own commission, gave you a roadmap, a plan to stop the bleeding, a reason to stay. You asked for the plan. I'm asking you to pass it before we all start packing. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
Hello, for the record, my name is Kaylee Krentz, K-R-E-N-T-Z. I'm from Washoe Education Association. I am the middle school director, but I'm talking to you about more than just being an educator. A little bit about that, but a little bit about why it's so important. I'm a proud product of Nevada's public school system, which I feel like when we were younger, it was, I don't know if it was funded better, I don't know the statistics, but I grew up in a Title I school here in town, just like the one I teach in now. Empire Elementary was my school. As far as I know, Carson, I think, is a lot of title now. I've dedicated my life to this system because I believe in the promise of public education, because I was given the promise of public education. I was told when I was a Carson High School Senator graduate that I was headed for big things. I was going to be a first-generation college student from my family, both of which were in unions. I was so excited to be able to be one of those families that had not one story, but 2 stories, because I was going to have a college degree. I hold a master's degree in education, a bachelor's of science in management, and an admin in art. And yet, despite my experience and qualifications, I still have to work side gigs just to make ends meet with my 5 kids. Educators across Nevada are burning out. It's not sustainable. Our students are worth way more than $2. And we're not burning out because we don't love our students. We don't love the job. That's always the excuse. But because we're being asked to do more with less, year after year, we're told to innovate, differentiate, inspire, heal, but we're not given the resources, the staff, or the time to do it right. I have 40 to 50 kids in every single one of my classes. It's impossible to provide differentiation, even in choir. You say education is a priority, and now it's your time to prove it. If we pass the plan and we fully fund our classrooms, we're investing in the people who show up every single day for Nevada's kids. We're the frontline workers, and we're tired, but we're not going to give up. We're just asking for what our students deserve and what we deserve, a fighting chance and a fully funded future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your public comment.
For the record, my name is Marcy Brodock, Brodock. I am a second grade teacher at Natchez Elementary, and I'm sorry I get a little bit emotional about what I'm going to talk about. The school that I come from is high in trauma. I have half of my students that come to me in trauma. I had the other day just a little boy come in and say, my mom was hauled away in an ambulance because she took some pills, and then they'll take her into custody. This is a 7-year-old that knows what being taken into custody is, and he's not the only student in my class. So in order for my students to be able to access the curriculum that I want to give them and the knowledge that they're going to need to be able to succeed as adults, I need to make sure that their basic needs are being met first, and that means their psychological, mental needs and their physical needs. So in order for me to be able to take that in, I'm not a therapist, but I am the adult in their life that will listen to them and let them know that they are loved and that they are cared for and that school is a safe place before I can start teaching them. Because this kind of trauma arrests their development. Their fight or flight takes over, and I have to calm that before I can put any kind of academic pressure on them. My students are rock stars. They come to school, they do engage in the lessons, and they are working really hard for me because they know that I care. And I'm going to do everything that I can for them. I'm going to invest my time. I'm going to invest my resources. I'm going to make sure that I become a better teacher year after year after year. And all I'm asking for you guys to do is to please invest in these students and give them a chance at a future. This is coming from a community with generational trauma. They have trauma where death and prison are the norm for them. And I know what I see in my students and what they are capable of and what they can become. But in order to do that, I need some resources, I need some help, and I need you guys to be able to invest in their future as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Is there any additional public comment here